Hello and welcome to another episode. Today we'll meet a man who will become known as the Wizard of Menlo Park, a title given to none other than Thomas Edison. Make sure to watch till the end to learn about all of his most spectacular creations. Most of us know Edison for his creation of the light bulb, but that's just one of his many notable inventions. Thomas Edison was born on February 11, 1847, in Milan, Ohio. He was the youngest son of Samuel Ogden Edison and Nancy Elliott Elliott. His father worked as a farmer and as a woodworker. His mother was a former schoolteacher. Unlike some of his siblings, Edison was not particularly close with his parents. They weren't bad people, but they weren't warm or affectionate either. Thomas was also not particularly close with any of his older siblings, which left him feeling lonely as a young boy. Instead of spending time with family, Edison would spend hours reading books by himself or performing chemistry experiments in the woods. Many of his family members would go on to describe him as being a strange, quiet child who preferred being alone. When he was 7 years old, Thomas had an episode in which he became violently ill and started having convulsions, which rendered him unconscious for 2 weeks. Although this was never officially diagnosed, it's believed that Thomas suffered from encephalitis, which is commonly known as inflammation of the brain. This illness left him partially deaf. According to Thomas himself, he was able to hear people when they shouted at him, but most sounds were inaudible. However, Edison insisted that his hearing loss was actually a blessing, since it forced him to focus on the world around him instead of being distracted by background noise. Edison went to school intermittently throughout his childhood, but he was not very successful as a student. His teachers felt that he was lazy and disruptive and often sent him home. His mother decided to take matters into her own hands and began homeschooling Thomas. She knew that he had potential, but she also knew that he needed more discipline. Under his mother's guidance, Edison became much more focused and began excelling in school. By age 12, he was well versed in algebra, physics, and chemistry. That same year, Edison got a job on a train where he sold newspapers and snacks. This job allowed him to travel while also earning money. Edison used his salary to purchase more books and conduct experiments. He converted the baggage car on the train into a makeshift laboratory, where he would perform experiments with chemicals. Unfortunately, Edison's chemistry experiments would soon get out of hand. One day, one of his concoctions accidentally caught fire, forcing him to abandon his lab and put the fire out. After this incident, he was instructed to no longer perform experiments on the train. At this point, Edison was only 14 years old, but he was already passionate about science. This passion would only grow in the coming years. Edison then moved to Cleveland, where he began working in a patent office. Even though his official job was to file paperwork, he spent most of his free time experimenting in the basement of the building. He learned how to make electric batteries and was even paid by the patent office to test the effectiveness of various types of telegraph equipment. Around this time, Edison noticed that he was experiencing hearing loss. This was most likely the result of him contracting scarlet fever as a child. While many people would let this bring them down, Edison simply viewed it as another challenge to overcome. He said that if he couldn't hear sounds anyway, then he shouldn't let it bother him. This mentality would help him succeed in the years to come. In 1862, at the age of 15, Edison got a job working as a telegraph operator. This was the beginning of his career in electrical engineering. 2 years later, he invented his first device, an automatic telegraph. This device enabled multiple telegraph messages to be sent over the same wire simultaneously. This invention immediately gained attention and made Edison wealthy enough to open his own shop. By this point, Edison was no longer interested in fixing other people's telegraphs. Instead, he wanted to invent new ways to improve telegraphs. Throughout the decade, Edison continued making improvements to telegraphs and improving his business. He opened new shops and hired staff. In total, he filed 13 patents between 1864 and 1870. However, all of these were related to telegraphs. This would soon change. By the 1870s, Edison was looking to move past telegraphs and find something else to work on. Then one day he had the idea of creating a device that could record sound. This device would later be named the phonograph. At first, Edison wasn't exactly sure how to proceed with his idea, but he eventually assembled a team of experts to help him make it a reality. On February 25, 1877, Edison and his team successfully completed the phonograph. When Edison spoke into the device, the phonograph wrote down his speech in raised lines on a sheet of metal. This made it possible for someone to play back audio by dropping a stylus into the grooves of the metal sheet. At first, the phonograph could only record and play back 3 minutes of audio, but within a few months, Edison's team was able to increase its capacity to 18 minutes. People were shocked by the phonograph because it seemed almost magical. Once the recording was finished, it was as if Edison had captured a person's voice in a box. This innovation made Edison a household name around the world. He was even invited to perform the phonograph for British Queen Victoria. Newspapers praised him as a genius, and people began referring to him as the Wizard of Menlo Park. As the years passed, Edison continued to work tirelessly on new inventions. He received hundreds of patents, but some of his most important included the motion picture camera, the storage battery, and improvements to telephones and typewriters. Throughout his career, Edison made more than 1,000 inventions, but perhaps none were more important than the incandescent light bulb. The light bulb is now considered one of the most important inventions of all time. However, others had been trying to create the light bulb since 1840 with little success. Edison realized that in order to create a light bulb that was useful to society, it had to last at least 10 hours. After conducting hundreds of experiments, Edison and his assistant, Zacharias Tison, finally succeeded in creating a long-lasting filament. This filament was made out of a thin piece of bamboo. Even though this was a great start, Edison knew that it wouldn't sell unless he could also create a reliable source of electricity. So Edison assembled a team of engineers and created the first power stations in electric grids. After completing this, he opened the first Pearl Street station in New York City on September 4, 1882. This station delivered electricity to several buildings near Wall Street. Soon after, residents were able to enjoy electric lights in their homes. At the flip of a switch, darkness could be banished. No longer were people stuck in darkness after the sun went down. Now they could stay active throughout the evening. The light bulb changed the world. Unfortunately, Edison's rivalries overshadowed this accomplishment. His greatest rival was a man named Nikola Tesla. Edison and Tesla were both proponents of electricity, but Edison supported the use of direct current, whereas Tesla advocated for the use of alternating current. In addition to Tesla, Edison also had issues with businessman George Westinghouse, who had partnered with Tesla. Their rivalry resulted in the so-called War of Currents. During this war, Edison sought to prove that AC was more dangerous than DC. To make his point, he publicly electrocuted dogs and even an elephant named Topsy. However, in the end, AC won out and became the standard. Edison lost this battle, but he continued to innovate until the end of his life. In 1928, Edison experienced declining health, forcing him to slow down. He was 81 years old and had worked nearly every day of his life. The strain was catching up to him. On October 18, 1931, at the age of 84, Edison died from complications of diabetes. The news of his death shocked the world. People from all over the globe mourned the passing of the great inventor. The city of New York dimmed the lights of the Chrysler Building and the Empire State Building in his honor. Though Edison was gone, his legacy lived on. His inventions had changed the course of human history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and for more content, please leave a like and subscribe. Studio Einstein.